A single bulb, crudely mounted on a pole, cast a dim light over a corner of the street in the darkness. A small figure sat slumped against the edge of the wall, beside the pole, the light illuminating his tiny frame. Below the pole, a small pile of garbage lay gathered. The boy's face was covered in cuts and scratches. His long hair hung down over his small face. In that darkness, a person emerged, clad in a full yellow outfit, with bleached blonde hair. They were the only burst of color after the bulb, approaching the boy. A small red bag was slung over their shoulder. The night was unusually quiet, the street devoid of laughter or chatter, even the dogs had stopped barking. The chirping of crickets had vanished altogether. It was as if the world had just been born and life had yet to form. The lone pole stood tall in the dark night. The man's footsteps halted. The boy's tired eyes were closed. The man looked at the boy, his blonde hair falling over his face. The single hanging light shone brightly. Looking at the boy's scratched face, eyes closed, the man called out, "Hey kid." The boy woke up groggily. The man spoke loudly towards him, "Did life knock you down?" The man was the only source of light and color the boy could see right now. The boy looked up. The blonde man said, "I've got good news for you." The man stood up. "Listen carefully." The boy looked up. The man, named Jay, said excitedly, grabbing the strap of his bag, "The stars are shining for you." A red boxing glove clenched, pointing forward. "When you reach the top, we'll have a go," he said to the kid. In the gym, the members were training hard. Some were hitting a weight hanging from the ceiling with their fists. Combined jumping. Book-san Ryu, training with another member, punches him, knocking him off balance and making him bleed. The voices of the training members buzzed with excitement as they looked towards the sparring floor. "Hey, did you guys see that guy over there, next to the coach?" "No way. It's him." The coach said they were friends. So, he was telling the truth. Standing outside, looking over the sparring floor, was the coach and Kay. Rumors were flying that he was scouring the world to find a successor before retiring. No one could have imagined he would come to their gym. The elderly man, his physique massive and sturdy, folded his arms in front of his chest, radiating an air of authority. He was Kay, the legend who had trained 5 world champions. The coach glanced over at the crowd of gossiping trainees. "All right, enough staring. Back to training." The group, flustered, returned to their workouts. A punch, aimed directly at the face of the man wearing the red helmet, landed with a resounding thud. He leaned back to counterattack, but Book-san Ryu swiftly dodged the blow with a smile. Then he aimed, preparing for a powerful punch. He quickly struck the man's face, then retracted his hand with a smile, leaving the man caught off guard. Kay watched, furrowing his brow, puzzled by the blow. The man lost his balance, stunned and falling backward. The coach stood by, laughing happily. "That kid is Book-san Ryu, the one I told you about before. He's been here for 2 weeks now. What do you think?" Kay stood aside, arms crossed, silently observing the fight. Book-san Ryu looked down at his opponent, smiling. Seeing his expression, made the man furious. He frowned. "Damn it!" He lunged forward with a punch, but Book-san Ryu's hand caught it. He then smoothly redirected the man's arm, moving it downwards, leaving the man bewildered while Book-san Ryu smiled with amusement. While the man was distracted, his eyes wide with bewilderment, Book-san Ryu landed another punch to his face, then quickly retracted his hand into a defensive position, grinning broadly. Kay stood to the side, frowning, judging him. This kid was just playing around with his opponent. This way, I wouldn't be able to know his true potential. Then he said to the coach, suggesting, "Let him fight the strongest fighter here." The coach turned doubtful. "The strongest?" In the locker room, a man wearing a beanie and black clothes was wrapping his hand wraps. He was tall and muscular. A young man walked in. "Steele, the coach is looking for you." Hearing this, he tilted his head and looked behind him. Then he walked to the coach, who was leaning on his hand, thinking, While this fight would be interesting, don't you think it would be better if the kid fought someone closer to his weight class? I mean, aside from the difference in physique, Steele is a national super middleweight 3. Book-san Ryu placed his hands on the rope barrier of the ring, smiling out. Steele walked over. "You're looking for me?" His eyes widened in disbelief. What? This is K? This is the first time I've met him in person. Wow, the coach turned to him, that's right. The coach and Steel then talked and discussed with each other. He silently looked up at the fighting stage. Back Sanryu bent down, resting his chin on the rope, smiling at him. Steel put on his gloves and entered the fighting stage. The coach was worried, instructing, just throw some light punches, okay. He remained calm, whatever. The coach frowned, easy now. Kei stood below the fighting stage, behind back Sanryu, looking up and observing him warming up. He focused his gaze on him. Steel looked at him and asked, "You're not going to wear a helmet? What if I accidentally hit you too hard?" Bac Sanryu smiled at him. "Oh, well, it'll just mess up your hair. Besides, I like the thrill." They both took their fighting stances. Steel said, "I'm going to knock that smug smile off your face." Bac Sanryu chuckled, challenging, "Go ahead, you'll see." Their gloves touched in a greeting. Seeing the match about to begin, the coach helplessly looked up at the stands. The sound of the gym trainees gathering and whispering, "What is he doing?" Steel's eyes were lazy, looking at his opponent. Kei stood silently observing. Standing before Steel, back Sanryu was on the defensive. He stood swaying back and forth in front of Steel. The people standing below laughed at him. "This kid is too into movies," one shouted. "Hey, are you crazy? Defend yourself," another yelled. The person standing beside him said, "Call an ambulance, we need one." The coach standing on the side winked and smiled, as if he knew what was coming. He's finally showing his true colors. The coach remembered the time he first met back Sanryu. His hand clenched tightly, blood dripping from his palm. He was still shocked. When he first saw him fight, the coach couldn't believe his eyes. A schoolboy, wearing a uniform, single-handedly took down a group of male students. Blood splattered everywhere. He grabbed a shaved-headed student by the collar, tilted his head back and looked at the coach. "I've never seen anyone move like this kid before." Bac Sanryu swayed and laughed. "Isn't the essence of boxing to move to the rhythm?" Steel's face turned red with anger at his opponent's playful behavior. "You!" Steel's powerful fist flew towards Bac Sanryu, but he effortlessly dodged it by stepping aside. His movements were unpredictable, and he counterattacked immediately with a straight punch to Steel's face. The moment they met, I realized he wasn't an ordinary opponent. The crowd watching was astonished. It was extraordinary. Kei stood with his arms crossed, calmly observing the fight. The kid deliberately defended loosely, mocking his opponent, and then threw a right hook as if he had planned it all along. Steel frowned, his face darkening under the fist of back Sanryu. Not bad for a newcomer with 2 weeks of training, but to defeat a professional opponent with a much higher weight class, he'd have to do more than just a few clever tricks. Back Sanryu went from being playful to serious, silently looking up at his opponent. Steel punched down. Back Sanryu quickly tilted his head back to dodge the blow. Seeing his punch miss, Steel pushed his hand back. Back Sanryu defended with both hands in front of his face. Steel punched forward. Back Sanryu blocked with both hands in front, stopping Steel's attack. He gritted his teeth and said, "Show me? Show me what a prodigy like you can do." Back Sanryu stared straight at the punch coming straight towards him. Kei focused on the match, waiting for Back Sanryu's instincts to surface. He used the strength of his arm to swing out, deflecting Steel's punch away. With the thunderous punch coming, Back Sanryu used his flexibility to lean back, close to the ground to dodge. The crowd watching was dumbfounded by Back Sanryu's flexible dodges. Kei frowned, as if angered. The murmur of the crowd, "Wow, did you see that?" He leaned back and dodged to the side. The coach smiled, as if having an advantage. "Yes, that's the posture." Then Back Sanryu stood there innocently. "Wow, nobody has taken my punch and still stood firm." Steel turned and said, "Kid, it seems you have reason to be smug." Bac Sanryu bowed his head, leaned forward, scratched his head and laughed. "You're too kind." Steel frowned. He knew this kid wasn't ordinary, but he didn't expect him to be this good. However, he couldn't let him take the upper hand in front of him. Steel tiptoed, gathered momentum, and charged towards Back Sanryu. It was time to get serious. Stopping in front of him, he gathered himself for an upward thrust. But quickly, Bak San Ryu stepped back, dodging a powerful kick from Steel. Steel started to advance seriously. As he prepared to strike, Bak San Ryu swiftly jumped back, sliding behind him. He then retaliated with a punch. Steel used his defensive stance, expertly avoiding the attack. He held both hands in front of his face, his eyes observing. "I can see your punches coming from miles away." A powerful uppercut to the chin, leaving him stunned, his teeth chattering. He was knocked back, his face turned towards the sky. The people at the gym were shocked. A hook under the jaw, Steel's face turned ashen. How could he have been hit? The trainer stood aside, chuckling in admiration. He didn't expect him to be so skilled. Steel's eyes darkened, filled with anger. But Bak San Ryu didn't care. He landed another hook to Steel's chin, followed by a straight punch to his chest. Demonstrating his agility, he slipped behind Steel, forcing him to turn around. He smiled at Steel before landing a powerful punch to his face and dodging Steel's counterattack. Steel gritted his teeth, furrowing his brow. He couldn't follow his movements. Looking at Bak San Ryu's nimble, swift footwork, Steel couldn't even keep up. It wasn't just speed, his timing and trajectory were impeccable. Then, suddenly, Bak San Ryu appeared before Steel like a phantom, causing him to flinch, his brow furrowed and his teeth clenched. Damn it! He landed a sweet punch to Steel's cheek. What kind of demon is he? Kay silently observed, judging the gracefulness of the movements. The kid easily dodged attacks and counterattacked in seemingly impossible positions, his expression unchanged. He analyzed the fluidity and speed of Bak San Ryu's movements, the sudden shift from a low hook to a horizontal hook. Normally, changing direction mid-attack is pointless, because the force of the strike is lost, making the punch very weak. But this kid was so flexible that he could maintain the force of the blow even after changing direction. His decisive punch landed on Steel's cheek, not like an ordinary knockout blow, each punch of his was seamless and smooth. Even a professional fighter would surely be hit. He was somewhat pleased. Even a professional fighter would surely be hit. In fact, with years of experience, they would be more likely to be hit, because they were trained to react quickly to any blow. In other words, only one word could describe the kid's fighting style: free. Bak San Ryu moved with suppleness, agility, and incredible speed. Steel focused on defense, he wasn't limited in dodging. And attacking, he grazed Steel's face. "I'm not crossing my arms and judging, it's been a long time since I've seen a natural talent like this." Steel is exhausted, panting, his eyes seem to devour the prey, watching as Bak San Ryu jumps and moves in front of him. It's truly. His footwork is light, bouncing between the ground and the air, a natural talent. In contrast to the intense gaze, Bak San Ryu's eyes are calm. Steel imagines Bak San Ryu sitting on a large mountain, chin in hand, at ease, while he himself is perched on a small hill. He takes a step forward, stops, but he's still lacking in experience. Bak San Ryu is cornered in the ring. His eyes dart around, a hint of worry. I'm cornered. It's over. Bak San Ryu lies on the floor, a green towel covering his eyes. The coach steps forward, blaming Steel. "I told you to go easy on him." Steel glanced down at Bak San Ryu. "If the fight wasn't in the ring, would you listen to me?" The coach beside him scolded. "What's wrong with you, you jerk?" Kay remained silent, looking at Bak San Ryu. As the sun set, the gym training session ended. Members left and chatted. Who would have thought the silver-haired kid is so good? Maybe I should ask for his autograph. I've never seen Steel struggle like that. After the gym was left with only the coach and Kay, the coach looked at Kay and asked, "What do you think of Ryu?" He pondered for a moment before saying, "He has the potential to be a champion. This kid has amazing motor skills and knows how to use his strengths. He's confident and bold. He hasn't been trained by anyone but has developed his own fighting style. He's going to be a legend in the future. Of course, his fighting style is still more showmanship than true effectiveness. But that's all the fans need, so he has the makings of a star." "He's not a normal talent," the coach said, crossing his arms. "I closed my eyes and thought I was going to look for a few more places, but it seems like that's no longer necessary. They were talking when a noise caught their attention. Down in the gym, in a secluded corner, 3 students were pushing another student against the wall. One of them was holding a camera. The student in the middle punched the student pressed against the wall. "You still don't understand? Damn it, just kill him," one of them chimed in. The coach saw it and was furious. "Those dogs," he muttered, "I'll stop them." "Wait." Yu's hair fell over his face. He remained silent, not answering them. "Kay noticed you." That's strange." Yu was punched but didn't fight back. He just remained silent, his eyes lowered. The back of a student, with short, long, drooping hair, full of resentment. Yu closed his eyes, ignoring the fist approaching his face. He seemed to disregard the fist coming closer to his face, accepting the punch. The punch landed on his face, causing him to tilt his head, but he didn't care, his eyes remained indifferent. Yu slowly opened his eyes. Like a bolt of lightning, it struck Kay, who furrowed his brow and watched from a corner. The man still gripped Yu's neck. Then, he delivered another punch. Yu didn't react to any of the punches. Letting them land on his face, Kay frowned. Then, he widened his eyes. It was impossible. Yu didn't react at all, remaining silent and accepting his fate. Quickly leaving the window, Kay said, "I'll go down there," before the coach could react and turn his head around. "Huh?" In a corner behind the building, on a wall covered with air conditioning fans, a voice echoed, "That's enough." Quickly, "What the hell is going on? Get out of here or you want to get beaten up too." The ringleader of the group, leaning forward with his hands on the ground, his eyes full of bruises, the coach stood before him and said, "Tell me again." The coach forced the group who had assaulted him to do push-ups. "I don't understand where you kids learn these monkey tricks. When I was your age, you stood in a corner, not paying attention, dusting his clothes." Kay watched him. The coach's face turned serious as he looked at him. "You just glanced over, not showing much interest." Kay crossed his arms. "Why didn't you dodge?" Yu paused, leaned over and looked at Kay. The two of them stood in silence, their eyes locked. Kay waited for an answer. "I knew immediately that you could easily dodge those useless punches." The leader was leaning down, his head bowed, his eyes half open, pathetic. Yu ignored Kay's words, closing his eyes. As he looked at Yu, he felt that if his intuition was correct, even professional fighters wouldn't be able to land a hit on this kid. In the darkness of his life, Yu had once slumped against a wall, consumed by self-pity. He turned around, saying nonchalantly, "I don't care." Kay stood frozen, speechless. Uncaring, Yu leaned over listlessly, glancing at the old man. He didn't look at him, instead gazing off to the side. Yu walked forward, heading out without looking back. The ringleader held his chin and looked up proudly, saying, "You shouldn't meddle in our business. He deserves to be beaten. He has no respect for his seniors." A sharp pinch to his ear made him wince in pain. "You disrespectful brats. What do you know about respect?" Kay stood silently in a corner, still watching Yu's retreating figure. The small, calm young man walked away from the alley. Then he pressed his lips together, believing in himself. He had to be sure. He stood firm, believing in his gut feeling. He clenched his fist. But what if he was wrong? The blood stains smeared across his hair. His eyes hardened. Screw it, he thought. I always live like this anyway. What's the point of overthinking it? He stepped forward. He walked towards Yu, calling out, "Hey kid." Yu heard the call and stopped, turning back to look. Kay clenched his teeth, gathering his strength for a punch directed at him. Yu remained calm, watching him. After realizing it, Yu glanced at the punch coming toward him. He quickly leaned aside to dodge it. Like a void, the force of Kay's punch caused dust to be pushed aside. The trainer saw Kay still in his punching stance, and looked over in surprise. Yu remained silent, looking at Kay. He said, "Do you want to learn boxing?" He stayed silent for a moment. Yu said, "Hitting people." He paused and looked at him. "Is it fun?" He recalled the moment earlier when the old man approached with a monster-like look, his fists clenched, strong as steel, charging at him. He emphasized, asking again, "Are you happy?" Kay furrowed his brow thoughtfully. The boy didn't have it. Behind Yu's small back, he mused. This kid didn't want to fight, gain fame, or rule others. He had no desire to rise above others like normal people. He remembered North Sanryu, You and him were completely different compared to the boy earlier. He frowned, pondering. The boy must have grown up in a rich and spoiled family, or in the worst-case scenario. He then repeated the question, is it fun to hit people? Wasn't it obvious? Hearing this, Yu glanced behind him. Looking at the rowdy students being punished, he continued, do you think those insolent kids hit you because they genuinely care about whether you respect them or not? Then he laughed and gave the answer, of course it was fun. The feeling of hitting someone else was really great. Humans are weak creatures who are always looking for meaning in life. Yu silently looked at him. There is nothing simpler and clearer than a punch. As in the wild, brute force is the easiest way to show dominance. Really, if two fighters battle each other in the ring, when a human wins, they are extremely excited. They lift the trophy towards the audience with pride, and at that moment, everyone goes crazy over the thrill and tension that boxing brings. He frowned and shouted loudly, you're a human too, aren't you? So prove you're worthy, see how far you can go, reach the highest you can. Kay wanted to awaken, to stir up Yu's emotions, but no, he still looked at him in silence. Behind the disheveled hair, his eyes opened wide, his wings spread and flew straight towards the sun until it scorched him, crushing his opponent under his feet. Kay's eyes were determined, that was truly living. He didn't move at all, he just stood still and listened to him, watched closely. He began to instruct, stepping forward with his feet, his hands clenched and raised in front of him in a defensive stance. Then he began to lure his opponent with his left hand, quickly drawing it back, then stepping forward with his right foot, twisting his body, and decisively delivering a powerful punch forward. He turned to look at him and introduced, this is a basic punch. Yu closed his eyes and turned. Kay echoed, you have a month. I'll be here during that time, come see me when you're ready. Yu walked away without looking back. Then Kay stood silently with his arms folded. Watching him walk away, the trainer stood aside and smiled awkwardly. At school, in the morning, the boys in the class were joking and laughing, haha, you bastards last time. Yu sat alone in a corner, isolated and indifferent, surrounded by the chatter of others. No, not. Jay knelt on the floor, his hands clenched tightly, enduring the noise around him. Let's see, 1, 2. It was the same group of thugs who had beaten you before. They were counting money, gleeful and saying, all right, $100, you're a good boy, Jay. Then one asked, do you want to go hang out with some girls from the other school? Someone answered, no way, they'd be scared of you. Then one ordered, hey, Jay, push the chair up a little. Jay was kneeling as a chair for him, trembling as he pushed himself up, his hands clenched tightly, sweat dripping down his face. They turned to someone else and asked, what about you, Ryu? It turned out to be Ryu, who was sitting on Jay's back, swinging his legs and laughing, nope, you know I have boxing training. He treated Jay like a dog. The leader spoke up, what kind of dog needs training? You're already strong enough. Jay struggled to endure Ryu sitting on his back, listening to them talk casually. He's a real idiot, what? Damn, he'll die. Guys like Ryu always have bigger goals. Ryu smiled, pleased with their praise. He'll be a world champion, that's right. I can see it now. In the classroom, Yu and Jay sat silently. There are two types of people in this world, the weak. Yu closed his eyes tightly. And the strong, that's none other than Baek-san Ryu. In contrast to the two, Baek-san Ryu and his crew were having a good time. Seeing Yu, these guys started bullying him again. Ryu's subordinate patted him on the head and said, you should know your place, you bug. You dare cause trouble for us. Ryu laughed mockingly and said, I heard you got a good beating from our coach. Don't worry about it. Then his subordinate approached Jay with a nasty attitude. He bared his teeth and said, what are you doing, Jay? It's lunchtime. You know we'll be bored without you. At lunchtime, Baek-san Ryu was slurping down his noodles. They surrounded Jay and kept saying, noodles for lunch, that's the best, right? Then, he turned to you and asked, right, Jay? You could only force a smile and stammered yes. The one called North-san Ryu, with a face that seemed ready to devour you whole, said, then what are you waiting for, eat it. Your hand, Jay, trembled as you held the chopsticks, because those guys had put worms into your bowl of noodles. Seeing your hesitation, he said, not enough food? The subordinate snatched your bowl of noodles and loudly said, we don't want you, Jay, to be hungry, right? Then, they took the lollipop they were eating and said, it still needs some seasoning. They dropped the lollipop straight into your bowl of noodles. And Jay looked into the bowl of noodles in fear. They laughed with glee, saying, are you satisfied now, Jay? Looks delicious, right? That's my lollipop. Seeing your fear, Ryu glared at you. And Jay was so scared he started crying. He asked, what's wrong? He moved closer to you and shouted in your face, still not enough food? And Jay, with trembling hands, slowly picked up a noodle. You ate the bowl of noodles to satisfy them. They laughed and said, good job, eat it all. You suddenly vomited, they shouted, gross, damn you. We're eating. Finally, Jay was released. He tried to vomit up the disgusting stuff in his mouth. He looked exhausted. He finally collapsed from exhaustion. During gym class, a guy yelled, what kind of half-assed pass is that? You and Jay sat together watching them play. The guys were shouting excitedly, pass it. Block Ryu. The North San Ryu was playing exceptionally well. He was so good that the others kept shouting, he's going to score. You gotta cover him. And Jay was just sitting there quietly. And you too, either of them spoke. Finally Jay spoke, why don't you play with them, you? You seemed really good at sports during the physical exam. Hearing that, you replied coldly, I'm not interested. Then he forced a smile and said, me either. He asked you shyly, so, is there anything you want to do? What's your goal? You looked down and asked, my goal? What about yours? He pondered for a moment before slowly replying, I've never thought about that. He suddenly remembered Kei's words, you're human too, right? Thinking back on those words, you fell silent and pondered. And then he also asked Jay, so what's your goal? Hearing that, he asked back, me? He rubbed his head and laughed. I don't know how to say it. I want to be like my father. After saying that, he burst out laughing. After hearing that, you didn't react at all. He just stared into space. Jay continued cheerfully, oh, by the way, I just bought a new game. Wanna come over and try it? You still didn't react after hearing that. He just sat there silently listening while Jay kept talking about everything. At this moment, Baek-san Ryu was still playing ball. Jay continued to laugh. I want to play with you and be closer to you. That would be great. Let's go right after school. At the same time, Ryu was also looking in your direction. Suddenly, the ball flew towards you with great force. But thankfully, you caught it in time. Seeing this, Baek-san Ryu was quite shocked. He stood there looking at you. While Jay was trembling with fear, wondering what he would do. He just stared at them both, his eyes wide with fear. The others stopped to watch as Baek-san Ryu slowly walked towards you and Jay. Jay, scared, could only silently hide behind you. At this moment, you and Baek-san Ryu faced each other, but you remained calm. He continued to glare at him. Then, he slapped him hard. Jay was so scared he couldn't say anything. He grabbed Yu's hair and said in a rough voice, I just wanted to play with him a little, you moron. He then leaned in close to Yu's face and continued yelling, don't you know how to take a joke? His face was filled with anger. Ryu warned him, you dare interfere again, and you're dead. You remained calm and didn't say a word. Jay was cowering in his seat. Finally, it was time to leave. You walked out of school. Jay apologized earlier and said he had to go home because of something urgent, so you went back alone. He walked home alone. At home, Jay was practicing hard, throwing punches into the air. He thought to himself that he shouldn't involve anyone else in this. This fight was his own. He remembered himself and his father throwing punches when he was young. His father had said, this is how you throw a punch, Jay. He practiced and resolved to be more courageous. He was exhausted from all the practice. He looked into the empty space and thought to himself, I said I wanted to be friends with him. He remembered how Baek-san Ryu acted during gym class and how he had behaved, and thought, but I just sat there and trembled. He clenched his hands in frustration. The image of Baek-san Ryu in Jay's mind seemed terrifying. His shadow loomed large in Jay's mind, making him feel inferior. He thought to himself sadly, I'm a real failure. Jay withdrew into his room. He retreated, thinking sadly to himself, come on man, I have to fight back. I can't live like this forever. He slumped down, thinking despondently, but how can I fight him? Then, Jay thought of Baek-san Ryu's intimidating gaze. He remembered his childhood self and whispered to himself that the power difference between him and it was clear, because he had been watching boxing matches since he was little. He clenched his fist, his eyes weary. He thought to himself that its strength was anything but ordinary. Then, Injay suddenly thought about the time he fought a much heavier opponent. He had witnessed everything back then. He thought to himself that even with those who had good skills or former boxers, Bak San Ryu had defeated a big man. At the time, he had sneered and said, "These little brats, it's nothing." Injay thought that Ryu looked like he had found a new toy. His subordinates had made Injay witness everything. He whispered to himself, "I've seen him fight many times, but the outcome was always the same." Remembering Ryu's terrifying gaze, he thought to himself, "No one can withstand his absolute power." In the dark night, the door suddenly opened. Hearing the sound, he looked up. It turned out to be Injay's father coming home. He ran out to greet him. "Dad, you're back." His father, with a gentle smile, said, "Hello, son, are you still awake?" He replied, "I was just about to go to bed." As his father rubbed his shoulder, he said, "My shoulders hurt." Suddenly, Injay called out, "Dad, before, when you were a fighter," he continued, "if you had to fight someone stronger than you, what would you do?" His father turned and looked at him after hearing his question. He closed his eyes, thought for a moment, and then answered, "Well, as a professional fighter, I had to give it my all, no matter how strong the opponent was." He continued, "You have to do everything you can to win. That's what it means to be a professional fighter." Injay lowered his head and slowly replied, "Yes, I think so too." He looked down, then continued speaking. But sometimes, when he encountered a strong opponent, he continued to tell his story. Even if he was a professional boxer, he would freeze with fear. He would forget everything he had learned and just grit his teeth and take the punches. He continued to tell his story. He would throw fearful punches into the air, just to cling to a sliver of hope. But it would all end. He would be knocked down. At that time, he thought that actually lying on the mat was better than being hit. He recalled that moment and thought, "It's finally over. I don't have anything to worry about anymore." He stood up and continued speaking. "But at the very moment you decide to give up, your career will end there." He explained to Injay that no matter how badly you're beaten, and you know the audience will jeer, even when you know you can't do anything else, if you have the strength and will to get back up, you can keep boxing. He continued, "That's what makes a true boxer." Injay's eyes lit up as he listened. Then, his father continued, "But I'm just talking about the competition. If you haven't done anything wrong, run. Run as fast as you can to avoid being caught." He said it with such conviction, that was true courage. He turned his back to Injay and continued to say that the courage of a warrior and a common man were both equally valuable. Hearing this, Injay obediently said, "Thank you, father, I'll go to sleep now," and his father smiled kindly in response. It was already dark outside. He still couldn't sleep. His eyes were wide open. He lay snuggled under the blanket, his heart pounding. It was dark outside, and someone was slowly walking up the stairs. "That's you, his face looks exhausted." Suddenly a voice rang out, "School's been over for a long time." It was Bak San Ryu. He continued, "You're late." He smirked, and said, "I've been waiting for you." He sat on the steps and continued, "Our kind-hearted homeroom teacher gave me your address. However, you didn't pay him any attention and walked away confidently." Bak San Ryu slumped his head, sighed and said, "You have no manners at all, you dog." Then he stood up and kicked him hard. After being kicked, you stumbled and fell. Then he grabbed his hair, glared at him and said, "You know how to throw a punch, right?" He shoved his fist in your face and taunted you, just like you did to me this afternoon. "Want to try it? Here and now." He glared at you with terrifying eyes. Then Ryu slammed your head against the ground and yelled something, a curse. Your eyes were vacant, devoid of emotion. Bak San Ryu looked at you. Seeing your silence, he sighed. Your head was bleeding. Bak San Ryu grabbed your hair and spat out threats, "From now on, I'll make your life a living hell." He glared, his voice harsh. "Your first task is to bring me $150 tomorrow. Or else you'll be sorry." He spat a mouthful of disgusting saliva in your face. He left but couldn't resist cursing, "You're a worthless piece of trash, a dead dog. What a waste of my time." After he left, you struggled to get up, exhausted. A small amount of blood was trickling from his head. Meanwhile, North-san Ryu was walking along the road. He remained silent, not saying a word. Suddenly, his expression changed, becoming frightening. He then noticed a group of people standing in front of him. Seeing them, his eyes widened in fear. The bald man with the thug face spoke. "You're Ryu, right?" Hearing this, Ryu cracked a smile. He said confidently, "I came here to see if you're as strong as they say." Before the man could say anything, Ryu charged towards him. Ryu landed a powerful blow, sending the man flying backwards. After the strike, the challenger, Ryu, slumped to the ground. He then turned to the others, flashing a friendly smile and saying, "Hello, everyone." Seeing Ryu's charming smile, they exclaimed, "Damn, what a dog!" As for the man, he remained on the ground. Perhaps Ryu still didn't want to let him off the hook, he still wanted to play with his prey. His face showed a look of utter fear. Seeing his frightened face, he gleefully said, "That's right, that's it. This is the expression I wanted to see." He was so scared that he stammered, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I'll never bother you again." But Ryu imagined him as you. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction at his own hand in tormenting others. In the darkness of night, Jay still couldn't sleep. He had single-handedly defeated the entire challenge group. He watched the others with an air of innocence. At Yu's house, he was sitting listlessly on the mattress. He held a very cute cat in his lap. Yu sat listlessly, his face expressionless, holding a cat. His eyes reflected despair. Jay was washing his face in the bathroom. He suddenly stopped. His face was filled with worry as he listened to his racing heart. Moments later, he thoughtfully held a spoon over an empty rice bowl. Jay pondered for a while. Then he got up to get more rice, telling himself he needed to eat a bit more today. After breakfast, Jay started putting on his shirt and adjusting his tie. He remembered his father's image. His eyes resolute in the mirror, he decided, starting today, he would become a new person. The scene shifts to a school. Jay sat still in class, but he couldn't shake the fear. Ryu's gang pushed open the door and entered. One of them cheerfully said, "After beating the crap out of that dog, I feel so refreshed." Seeing the group enter, he cowered in fear, trembling and unable to move. They were here. Jay tried to convince himself, "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid." The two guys in the back ignored Jay and laughed playfully. "Did you guys watch what I sent yesterday? Haha, what a loser." Seeing their actions, Jay froze in shock. He looked up with clear eyes, wondering, are they going to leave me alone? He was confused and worried, wondering, what is going on? He then turned towards Yu's seat. I was suddenly surprised because he was late today. After a day of school, he still sat there motionless, surrounded by the noisy chatter of his classmates. Wanting to go to the net cafe after school, let's go. He kept asking himself why in his head. He sat there thinking, they hadn't picked on him at all today. He frowned worriedly and looked over at them. This was strange. Why were they suddenly leaving him alone? Suddenly he remembered Ryu's younger brother's unintentional words. After beating that dog to a pulp, I feel so refreshed. Recalling, his eyes seemed to know that something bad was going to happen. He guessed, could it be? Cut to an unlocked warehouse. Yu lay beaten and bruised on the floor. A Ryu henchman taunts him. Come on, this isn't a place to rest. You should be bringing us money. Yu's eyes are blank, showing no interest in them. The henchman grabs Yu's collar. Get up, you bug. It's time for your training session. Yu assumes a defensive stance. Alright, stand up straight and... A man in black behind you holds him down and punches. The man mocks Yu's fighting skills. 1-2 1-2. Haha. The Dempsey roll is a technique created by Jack Dempsey, for smaller fighters. He turns to brag. See? My moves aren't too bad, are they? Ryu, seated on a high platform, enjoys the spectacle and responds. No, you need to rotate your hips more. The man replies, oh, okay. Ryu watches with a mocking, amused look as they fight. At that moment, Jay charged in and shouted, enough. Ryu's underlings were all surprised by his action. But then Jay froze in fear, not knowing what to do. He had spoken out. A man in a black jacket raised his head and asked, what? Jay remained motionless, his heart beating faster. He wondered, am I dreaming? No, I'm not. His mind raced. I said it. Why did I do that? Why? His entire body felt drained, as if pulled somewhere. He was dizzy. Why did I say that? It's not too late to apologize. I can't even move my legs. I'm scared. No, I should run. No, how can I fight them? I'm so scared. It's too late. Ryu turned his head, speechless, and stared at him, unmoving like a rock. Your legs were shaking, but you tried to convince yourself, be brave, you couldn't take back what you just said. Ryu's henchman saw this and laughed. Haha, still pretending to be a hero. Look at him shaking like a dog in a dryer. Even your arm was shaking. You've replayed this scene in your head countless times. You can do it. With a little motivation, you raised your fists, ignoring your heart beating out of your chest. You've been waiting for this moment for so long. Looking at your thin body and determined face, the henchman teased, haha, look at him guys, he's doing a boxing stance. Ryu's expression showed amusement at this. Yu's eyes also started to look at Injei's skinny body. You clenched your fists. Only 2 words echoed in your head, calm down, calm down. A young thug approached, grinning. Looks like we've been too easy on you lately. As he drew near, memories of his father teaching him martial arts flooded back. He relaxed his arms and shoulders, spreading his legs wide. A familiar voice filled the air, and he instinctively followed its instructions, lifting his front heel and turning slightly. He extended his left elbow and punched. The unexpected blow froze the thug, his eyes widening in surprise. He shifted his stance following the instructions, transferring his weight to his front foot. He rotated his hips and threw a punch. The voice ended as his fist connected with the thug's jaw, a perfect right hook. 2 of his men stood there in surprise. He stumbled, holding his face. Injei gaped in disbelief. His clear eyes looked up. I did it. The one who had been hit by his punch was bleeding from the nose. Another one came out and yelled, you idiot! What are you doing, huh? He looked at the blood on his hand. How the hell? He was so angry that the veins on his face popped. He had suddenly become like this. Injei frowned, staring straight at them. His punch, it had landed. He dropped his hand and looked at him. As he shifted his foot, making a swishing sound, the man flinched in fear and looked. He whispered to himself, from now on, I won't be scared of you anymore. Seeing this, the man trembled in fear and backed away. He looked at the boy in front of him incredulously, muttering curses, you beast, you animal. Suddenly, a voice came from behind, followed by a hand on his shoulder, move aside. He turned around and looked at Ryu, who said, unless you want me to beat you up. Ryu asked, so you know how to box, right, Injei? Ryu leaned his face close to you. Your heart started to beat fast again. One of them laughed mischievously. He just passed level 1 and is going straight for the boss. The other covered his face. Damn it. 2 pairs of legs stood spread apart. He sneered, let's see how far you can go. The real fight has just begun. Injei's heart hammered in his chest. His face became tense. He tried to calm himself down. Don't worry, just follow the plan. He took a step to the side, silently assessing. If I rely only on my skills, winning is impossible. Bac-san Ryu stood facing him, watching him dazed. He sneered, hello, is anyone home? Jay, where do you think you're going? His eyes were cold as he looked down and asked, you're not going to hit me, are you? Injei heard Bac-san Ryu's question and pursed his lips, thinking to himself, even the slightest chance. He punched towards him quickly, thinking, I'll try to punch fast and hard. So fast it'll sound like the wind, whoosh. But Bac-san Ryu easily dodged the punch with a look of amusement. He didn't stop, he quickly threw out multiple punches with incredible speed. Injei knew he couldn't rely on his current skills. While throwing punches, he thought, surround him with continuous punches. But Bac-san Ryu continued to dodge effortlessly. Injei gritted his teeth and continued attacking him. He attacked and thought, just one hit while he's off guard, I'll have a chance to beat him. Bac-san Ryu, though continuously attacked, didn't attack back, he simply dodged. His subordinates stood to the side watching them fight. The orange-haired one gasped in surprise, wow. After a while of continuously attacking, Injei was exhausted. His face was dripping with sweat. He tried to throw more punches, praying in his heart, just one hit, land the blow. Baek Sanryu remained calm, dodging. Looking at him, whose state was entering exhaustion, a look of amusement curved his eyes. You kept trying to land punches but none of them connected with Baek Sanryu. Your breath was getting heavy and you couldn't breathe. Your body felt heavier and you couldn't throw punches as powerfully and quickly as you did at the beginning. Baek Sanryu dodged your punch with ease and said mockingly, "What's the rush, Jay? Swinging your arms like that will just tire you out." He dodged another attack and continued, "Every punch has to be accurate and powerful." Now he landed a swift and forceful punch on Injae's face, saying, "Like this." Blood spurted from Injae's nose, his body recoiling backward from Baek Sanryu's blow, his eyes widening in terror. The first punch is crucial. It determines who will have the upper hand throughout the fight. Injae was thrown off balance, his head thrown back, blood spurting from his nose, fear filling his eyes as he looked at Baek Sanryu. The person who gets hit suddenly loses all hope, and fear begins to creep in. These words seemed to be coming true for Injae after he took Baek Sanryu's punch. Seeing him standing there, Baek Sanryu walked closer and asked, "What's the matter? Don't just stand there." His eyes gleamed with madness. Looking at Injae, who was terrified in front of him, he cracked a ferocious smile and said, "Didn't you always want to fight me?" You shouted and threw a punch at him. Baek Sanryu easily dodged the blow and laughed gleefully, "Ha ha." Then he raised his fist. Blood from Injae's nose dripped down onto his chin. Injae's pupils shrank in terror. Baek Sanryu landed a swift, powerful punch to Injae's face. The sound of the punch connecting echoed bop. Injae's body flew backward, and his glasses were knocked into the air. Injae collapsed. His head lolled to the side, and blood from his nose spurted out more forcefully than before after the blow, spattering everywhere. He collapsed on his knees, his face still stunned from the punch. Blood continued to drip from his nose, falling onto the ground. Baek Sanryu looked down at Injae with a smile on his face. Seeing him still kneeling on the ground, Baek Sanryu spoke, "Hey." After the punch, Injae was so frightened that he started crying. His eyes reflected his extreme fear. He thought to himself, "He's strong like a monster." He thought fearfully, "This guy is on a completely different level." Baek Sanryu put his hand on his shoulder, moving with casual ease. Looking down at Injae, he said, "I went easy on you. Don't whine like a woman." Injae knelt on the ground, gasping for breath, his eyes cold as he looked down at the pitiful state of his opponent. His thoughts were scattered, panic rising as he frantically searched for his backup plan. He was doomed. Injae couldn't remember anything. His mind was a blank, and fear gripped him. He was completely lost. The orange-haired man, one of Baek Sanryu's subordinates, sneered at Injae's defeated posture. "I told you. How could that scrawny guy beat Ryu? Someone should have warned him what was coming." The bald man with a bloody nose barked angrily at the orange-haired one, "Shut up." The other man simply stood there, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold. Seeing Injae remain motionless, Baek Sanryu leaned down and asked, "Giving up already?" Injae's eyes narrowed with resentment as he heard the words. His hand trembled, a single tear still clinging to his knuckles. In Jae's mind, the image of a warrior standing proudly in the light appeared. As you struggled to stand up, your body swaying, Baek Sanryu saw you get up and said with a cheerful tone, "Oh, he's getting up." He looked at you with a playful smile and said, "That's what I like to see." You collapsed too quickly. What's the fun in that? Jae straightened up, raising his hand in a defensive stance and gasping for air. "Ha ha," his eyes fixed on Baek Sanryu with determination. You looked at him with tension and alertness, strategizing in your head. "For now, I have to stay on the defensive and try to hold out against his attacks." You thought, "If I can endure a little longer, he'll eventually tire out. This will be my last chance." With that thought, Jae's eyes turned resolute, the fear gone. Baek Sanryu saw the change in your eyes and said, "Good eyes." He leaned over, his other hand behind his back, clenching his fist. Then round two. Jae was astonished to see him with one hand behind his back. Noticing Jae's shocked expression, Baek Sanryu continued speaking, starting the match. He saw that Baek-san Ryu wanted to fight with just one hand and whispered with vigilance. One hand? I won't let him manipulate me. If it's just one hand, it'll be easier to block his attacks. Seeing that Jae just stood there and didn't attack, Baek-san Ryu asked. What, not going to make a move? After looking at Jae for a moment, Baek-san Ryu mused. At that moment, Baek-san Ryu unleashed a punch so fast that the only sound heard was a loud thud after it hit Jae's face. Jae remained in his original defensive posture. Jae's eyes widened in disbelief. He got through my defense so easily. Jae lowered his head, gritted his teeth, and kept his defensive stance, thinking, I need to be more careful with my defense. Seeing that Jae was still standing firm and maintaining his defensive stance, Baek-san Ryu's eyes showed a glimmer of approval. Not bad. He laughed loudly and then repeatedly punched Jae, each blow landing on his body with a thud, thud, thud. He could only raise his hands to protect his head. He closed one eye, gritting his teeth, enduring each punch that landed on his body. It hurt so much, it was like being stabbed with a knife. He endured the pain of the steel-like punches from Baek-san Ryu, silently reassuring himself, You're used to being beaten, you can handle this. Baek-san Ryu noticed he was trying to endure the pain, and he smirked wickedly. Jae lowered his head, eyes wide with disbelief. Blood sprayed out of his nose again. A loud thud echoed as Baek-san Ryu landed a hook to Jae's stomach. The force of the punch was so strong that it lifted his body off the ground. Jae clutched his stomach and staggered backwards, his entire body shaking with pain. The pain from his abdomen surged up, causing him to cough. After landing the hook to Jae's stomach, Baek-san Ryu tilted his head back, his face brightening. A satisfied smile spread across his lips as he thought, AAA, such a satisfying feeling. Jae was hunched over, but his hands were still in a defensive posture. One of his eyes was swollen shut from the pain, and he stared incredulously with his other eye. He couldn't believe it. He had focused on protecting his head, so the blow to his stomach came as a surprise. Was this truly what fighting was like? He clenched his fists, his gaze becoming more determined than ever. He made up his mind, I need to strengthen my defense. With that thought, Jae stood opposite of Baek-san Ryu, immediately assuming the strongest defensive stance he knew. He bent low, his feet spread wide, and his hands were raised to protect his head. Seeing Jae's defensive posture, Baek-san Ryu understood. He chuckled, thinking, So, this is your plan? His eyes grew cold as he looked at Jae, thinking, I'll play with him a little. He continued to attack Jae with only one hand, each punch landing with a dull thud. Despite the pain, Jae gritted his teeth, maintaining his defensive stance. Baek-san Ryu pivoted his feet, kicking up dust with the movement. After shifting his body with the pivot, he easily landed a punch on Jae's side. The young man continued to bite down on his tongue, refusing to let out a sound. He shifted his direction again, continuously attacking different parts of Jae's body. Each punch landed with a thud, echoing in the air. Baek-san Ryu's attacks were getting faster and faster. He seemed to have no fatigue whatsoever. Jae squeezed his eyes shut and continued to endure. He told himself to hold on a little longer. The orange-haired guy watched Jae being beaten and laughed gleefully. Wow, he's getting beaten like a dog. The other two just stood silently watching the fight. Even though he was being beaten like this, he still held his ground. His feet were like nails driven into the ground, not retreating a single step. He silently thought to himself, if I can hold my ground, I know I can do it. Baek-san Ryu didn't stop attacking. His sweat flew into the air with every movement. The space around Jae was now pitch black. All he could think about was, there will be a moment when he reveals a weakness. Time passed slowly. Dusk had begun to fall. Suddenly, Baek-san Ryu stopped. He stood still, no longer attacking. Jae was surprised to see him suddenly stop. He thought he stopped moving. He looked up at him. It seemed that Baek-san Ryu no longer held back when fighting Jae. He wanted to deliver the final blow to knock him out. Jae saw Baek-san Ryu gathering all his strength into his fist. He thought to himself, Ryu is risking everything to knock me out with a single punch. He was now vulnerable. Jae observed him. His movements were too big. Seeing this, Jae immediately knew his opportunity had arrived. His eyes changed, becoming sharp. He silently said to himself, "This is the perfect time." Jae immediately channeled his energy into his leg. "I will put all my remaining strength into this punch." From the power in his legs he sprung into the air. He tightened his fist and gritted his teeth. "Take this." From his eyes, a sharp gaze appeared, the gaze of a fighter who had seized the opportunity to defeat his opponent. Jae launched a swift punch towards Bak Sanryu, but he dodged it. He leaned back, avoiding Jae's uppercut. A triumphant smile appeared on his face. He had lured his prey into his trap. Jae was surprised and couldn't believe that Bak Sanryu, who had exposed himself, was able to dodge his attack. At that moment, Bak Sanryu sprang up and counterattacked. He swung a powerful fist, striking Jae with a resounding thud. The force and speed of Bak Sanryu's blow were so strong that it kicked up dust and debris. Jae's father was in the ring. The referee announced his record: 27 total matches, 13 wins, 12 losses, and 2 draws. In the ring, his father endured the pain, looking at his opponent. Probably no one remembers him as a strong fighter during his time in the ring. His son sat quietly under the ring watching the fight, but no one would dare think he was weak. Jae's father moved swiftly, dodging the attack. "My father was a very tough fighter." His son's eyes lit up, and I always admired him for it. Scene changes to Jae's father, a laborer carrying a sack on his shoulder. He paused and looked down. He stood before the entire city in front of him. Suddenly he remembered little Jae smiling. Deep inside, he sent his son a message, wishing him good luck. The scene shifts to Jae being pressed to the ground by Ryu, his face bruised and bloody. He vomited blood and lay motionless on the floor. Ryu's 2 henchmen chatted mockingly. "Man, did you see that? I think he's dead." Ryu's face revealed excitement and a smug smile. Meanwhile, Jae lay flat on the ground, wondering, what just happened? Your body feels limp, as if falling into an endless spiral. Everything is spinning. Where's the ground? You encourage yourself inside, and your legs move accordingly. You have to stand up. You use your hands to push against the ground, summoning a bit of strength to stand. But it's no use. You fall back onto the floor again. You lie there helplessly, listening to Ryu's plan. You have to endure it. Ryu squats down beside you. If you can defend yourself successfully, this dog will be exhausted even if he lives. Hearing these words, you glance at him. When that moment comes, you'll hit him with all your might. He leans down, his eyes looking through you. That's your plan, right? Jae looked at him in fear, too afraid to say anything. Ryu mocked him. That's too obvious, loser. The shock on his face became more and more evident. He lay there trying to motivate himself. Stay awake, it's not over yet. In the distance, it seemed like his father was there to cheer him on. Jae struggled to get up. I can still move. As soon as he got up, he quickly punched Ryu. But he was still no match for Ryu's strength, and ended up getting punched by him. His whole body swayed, losing its balance. Ryu swung out in front of you. Then he laughed, a whistling sound. His foot slammed into your face with a crack. You were stunned, unable to react to the blow. Right after, his hand was nearing your cheek. A slap, the force of it sent your nose bleeding. Tears welled up in your eyes. Then came your counterattack, but Ryu blocked it all and punched you again. He hit him in every way possible. Yet he still tried to fight back. The two of them struggled for a long time. Jae gasped in pain, collapsing to the ground. He curiously asked him if he had learned boxing somewhere. He remembered his father's words, "The moment you give up, your boxing career is over." His face, filled with pain and fatigue, stared at the ground. His father's memories and words continued to motivate him, even when he was battered and could do nothing more. I gritted my teeth, shut my eyes tight, and forced myself to stand up. Ryu turned back, still mocking me. "Not bad for a loser like you," he warned as he walked away. "I'm going to leave you alone now, so don't try to piss me off again, got it?" Jae trembled as he stood up. A powerful voice stopped him in his tracks. "Wait." The image of his father appeared in his mind, encouraging him. That's what a real fighter does. He gasped for breath, his fists clenched tightly. "It's not over yet." Ryu stopped in his tracks hearing those words. His goons stood by the table, whispering, "Wow, this idiot's crazy. Is he pretending to be brave so he can get killed or something?" Yu sat still, observing the whole thing. Ryu turned his head, his angry eyes clearly wanting to eat him alive. He ran over. Without a word, he punched him right in the face. A loud thump as the punch distorted his face. Jae went limp from the sudden blow. Ryu's hand grabbed his collar. He went limp, his body losing all strength, and he slowly collapsed. 3 of his men stood watching him beat Jae. One of them started to fear, what if he dies? He's asking for it. He was beaten to a pulp, blood all over his face, his eyes swollen. Ryu, furious, said, "I told you not to piss me off." He laughed scornfully, his fist raised. "You weakling, I have to beat you to a pulp for you to know your place." Veins popped on his face, his eyes filled with hatred. "You think you can beat me? You have no idea who you're challenging, you bastard." He looked at Jae with a manic glint. "You think you can win with those pathetic skills?" He grabbed his collar and leaned in close. "I don't know what fool taught you this. But once you're a loser for life, dog." He spoke, "No. Your voice was trembling. I never thought I'd have a chance to beat you." He opened his eyes wide in surprise. "What?" You remained seated, silent. He spoke each word painfully. "You still don't understand, you idiot." At that moment, his eyes were resolute and strong. "I'm not the weak Jae anymore. I've achieved my goal, becoming a stronger fighter than anyone, or the strongest in the area. I don't care about those boring things anymore." He was stunned by these words. Jae yelled, "I will become a true fighter." Yu's vacant eyes were surprised by his voice. Ryu felt both amused and even more angry. He gritted his teeth and cursed, "You bastard." He punched the boy repeatedly in the face. "You think it's boring, don't you? You think it's bland, huh, you bastard?" He stopped when the boy's nose bled profusely. He shouted, "You still think it's boring?" Suddenly, a voice came from behind, causing him to turn around. "Having fun?" His 3 underlings also turned around in surprise. Yu was approaching from behind. A deep voice asked him, "Hitting someone like that, do you feel good?" His gaunt face was like an empty shell. "Do you enjoy it?" The assistant called him K, the coach. Below the building, people came and went. Seeing him sitting there, arms crossed and gloomy, the man asked again, "Coach, what did you do to that kid just now?" His mood was a mix of emotions. He asked the man, "Do you believe in intuition?" The assistant was confused by this intuition. He continued, "With my students, when I see them for the first time, I usually have a special feeling." He hesitated before voicing his concern. "I knew they would rule the boxing world. When I saw Ryu, I had the same feeling, but..." His voice suddenly stopped, as if there was something indescribable here, the boy just now. Yu's sorrowful eyes had etched themselves onto his mind. He was a being unlike any other. He was confused by the old man's strange words. "A different kind of being. What do you mean?" The old man pondered for a moment. "The scene shifts to you going out the door." Ryu's underling scratched his head in irritation. "What did you guys eat today? You're all acting crazy." He stormed over. "Today has been bad enough for me, so you'd better." Mr. K laughed and asked, "What do I mean?" He remembered that cold, emotionless gaze again. Yu, on the other hand, didn't say a word, but landed a sudden punch. A loud BUP resonated. He staggered, losing consciousness, about to fall. Then he landed another punch to his face. The immense strength and agility created waves that spread around, accompanied by a louder bop. Mr. K trembled all over, his voice trembling in fear. "It makes me shiver all over." The other 2 were stunned, their eyes wide in astonishment. Even Ryu was stunned by his strength. But he still didn't change his expression. 2 bodies collapsed under him with a single blow. The man in black stared in disbelief at the body lying motionless at Yu's feet. He looked up at him. Both frightened and cursing, "You bastard." He ran toward him. Just as his fist neared him, he fell backwards with just one invisible, powerful punch. His nose bled as his body collapsed. The other man stared in shock as he fell. He screamed in fear and ran away. Only Ryu continued to look at him. He looked at him with strange eyes, a mix of shock and fear. The assistant asked Mr. K, "Out of fear?" He replied, "Yes, don't you feel it?" He reminisced about that memory, his body still trembling with fear. "When I first saw him, haha, I still get chills now." The look of sheer shock upon seeing you for the first time, that expression. He could see it in his eyes. Even though his hair covered his eyes, it couldn't hide his abilities. He seemed so bored, as if he was deliberately waiting to be attacked. The assistant couldn't believe his ears. What? It felt like only the two of them remained, two powerful individuals facing each other. The assistant frowned, confused. Bored? How could that be? Mr. K laughed loudly. Of course not. His voice deepened, his eyes revealing even more fear. That's why I had to check. I threw a deadly punch to force him to dodge. He smirked and said, the rest you've seen for yourself. The assistant, confused, asked, you mean? Mr. K slumped down and admitted yes, he dodged it without even flinching. A normal person wouldn't be able to predict it. That's why fighters train for years to anticipate their opponent's movements, how they move their shoulders, their steps, their rhythm, and even their habits, anything they can use to their advantage in a fight. But that kid saw my punch coming and dodged it. It wasn't luck or instinct. The way he dodged was incredibly fast and precise, like he saw the whole thing beforehand. He spoke, feeling bewildered, and asked his assistant, do you know what this means? I've met many people with natural talent in my life, but that kid is one of a kind. You stood there, looking at him with no emotion. Ryu stood up and faced him. His heart started beating frantically. He wondered what this pressure was. As he looked into those emotionless eyes, Ryu went crazy. What was he looking at with those dead eyes? He was confident of his victory, believing he was doomed. His feet made a swooshing sound. His body moved exploratorily in front of you. His eyes suddenly became focused, filled with killing intent. He faced him, but showed no emotion. Ryu's eyes saw an opportunity. He leaped forward. But before he could strike, a punch landed on his face. Mr. K revealed the truth. He simply reacted quickly, that's all. You looked at him with indifference as he cried out in pain on the ground, my face, my face. The fact that he could see my punch coming and dodge it precisely means that time always slows down in this kid's eyes. He gasped for breath, wondering if his eyes were still on his face. He said nothing, coldly watching everything unfold. Do you understand what I'm saying? Ryu looked at him in fear. He wasn't a genius. No, he was something else entirely. Fear, disbelief, and astonishment were the expressions on his face as he looked at him. He couldn't even call it a human. It was a monster. Ryu's back stood alone. He wondered, why? From a young age, he had witnessed many fights. Ryu always wondered. It all started with a simple question, why? A fool willingly takes a painful hit from his opponent. Why doesn't he dodge? Even when his opponent gets close, exposing so many blind spots, why doesn't he fight back? He's within reach. That punch looks so weak, why doesn't he punch harder, why? He slowly walks down the hallway. It didn't take me long to find the answer. Once, his shoulder bumped into someone walking in the opposite direction. The other person frowned and looked at him angrily. He looked back at the other person with an emotionless gaze. The next second, the kid was curled up holding his stomach, his body trembling with pain. Everything he had eaten came back up. Ryu looked at him indifferently. He realized, it's a simple answer. He stood there slowly. Those guys weren't weak, it's just that I was too strong. Hundreds of eyes focused on him, amidst the crowd of people coming and going. To Ryu, that kid was just a weak ant about to die under his feet. He raised his eyebrows and felt it. Ah, what a pleasurable feeling. He felt excited as he released his fist, witnessing the weaker ones suffer, and from that point on, there was an endless series of battles. He craved those eyes, to worship him more. The defeated man's eyes turned white, his nose and mouth bleeding. His fear grew even stronger. The more they suffered, the more he was aroused. More. Ryu told himself, I'm lost in the pleasure of seeing them kneel, trembling at my feet. He was alone amidst thousands of people. His world was drenched in the color of blood. Those people were just strangers. Before he knew it, my notoriety in the underworld spread throughout the country. Whenever a fool comes to challenge me, or thinks they can crush me, I get so excited my heart skips a beat. He punches so hard that the fool's face caves in, and with the sheer joy of punching those fools, I realize more than ever. They cry out in pain, even faint. He is confident, my own skills are superior to theirs. They have to defend themselves, until they vomit. He doesn't stop but continues to press on. That overwhelming realization, San Ryu opens his eyes, making everything clear. He sits proudly with his strong body forged over years. That's right, I'm the chosen one. Until in front of him are the endless mountains, symbolizing the strength of every opponent he has faced, so many that their faces and figures are no longer clear. However, karma will come, sooner or later. He staggered from a painful blow. His breathing became heavy, and his mind became hazy. What just happened? A jab, a fast and unexpected punch. He retreated in fear, trying to maintain a distance from the faceless figure. He felt like a part of his face had just shattered. How could a jab be that strong? For the first time, San Ryu's eyes trembled. He couldn't believe it. No, it couldn't be. But he was the chosen one, wasn't he? He recalled the image of Kei standing arms crossed, resolute. Even the old man had acknowledged his superior abilities compared to others. San Ryu got up, his heart burning with frustration. What a shame. He stumbled, muttering to himself. It must have been a lucky hit, or maybe he just slipped. Enraged, he glared and threatened, "How dare you? Win by luck? I'll beat the hell out of you." He bounced on the ground. "I will move fast and smoothly, maintaining a rhythmic back and forth." San Ryu moved so fast that he created an illusion. He deliberately tried to distract you. This time, he'll give it 100%. You didn't even bother to look away, just staring straight ahead. He didn't take his eyes off you either. He was trying to move around, looking for an opening, figuring out how to hit you. San Ryu was closing the distance. He was thinking, should he try to stun you with jabs and toy with you slowly, methodically? He was calculating all the possibilities. But that wouldn't be enough to punish you. It would just make me angry. Ignoring San Ryu's probing, you would hit him as hard as you could and kill him. You just stood there watching. He saw an opening, he gritted his teeth, his eyes were red, he swung his fist, "Die." You reacted quickly, dropping to your knees, your head lowered, dodging the blow, ducking. Not bad. He cracked a savage smile. You think you can just keep dodging forever? San Ryu turned to counter. He ground his foot into the earth for momentum. Open your eyes wide and watch. You stood still, waiting for his attack. His fist shot out, aimed straight at Yu's face. He was smug. This was his natural talent. In a split second, his fist was inches from Yu's eye. He instantly ducked. San Ryu's fist flew through the air. The sheer force of the blow created a powerful recoil behind it. San Ryu stared in shock and terror. You looked up from below, his fist already poised. A blinding light flashed, startling San Ryu. He executed a hook to the side of his waist, his entire body contorting with the force of the blow. The power behind the punch was even more terrifying than before. San Ryu was shocked, his eyes narrowed tightly, his mouth agape in surprise. His world seemed to slow down for a few seconds. Before his opponent could recover, you unleashed another punch. The punch was so fast and powerful that San Ryu's face was reduced to a crescent moon. His head flung backward in flight. Blood splattered from his nose, leaving him in a stunned daze. You continued with a third punch, and dozens more landed upon his body. He slid with each strike. San Ryu's vision blurred. He saw illusions. He glanced around the mountain peaks where his enemy stood, but the one he was looking for seemed to be gone. Where was it? Why couldn't he see it? Shifting perspective from above, he still couldn't see it. Where was it? San Ryu was perplexed. Where could it have gone? He sat alone on a mountain peak in a meditative posture. He shrugged, listening to his heart pounding. San Ryu fell into a state of uncertainty, frantically looking around. A terrifyingly huge figure with long black hair appeared behind him, and he transformed into a tiny, frightened bacterium. Black eyes peeked out from behind the fringe of hair, looking at him. He crawled back, his heart pounding. San Ryu furrowed his brows in panic. At this moment, he sat up and shouted, realizing that he was in the hospital. His whole body was injured, bandaged head, one eye patched, neck in a brace, chest and arm wrapped up, and the other hand hooked up to N4. San Ryu stared at the ceiling, panting, as if trying to calm himself down. He looked at the ceiling. It took him a few minutes. Back-san Ryu finally realized the situation. There wasn't a part of his body that wasn't broken or bruised. Even moving a finger was a difficult task. Now, he's like a child crying for his mother, a feeling Ryu has never experienced before. His remaining eye dimly sees a figure with black hair. Back-san Caillou is stunned. Oh. His blood-red pupils shine brightly, so it is. His whole world is a terrifying and unsettling black, a feeling of defeat, fear, regret and despair. For the first time in his life, Ryu has to taste the bitterness of darkness gradually engulfs his figure, the failure. He frowns painfully, his eyes welling up. He wants to cry out loud like a child, at the age of 17. Back in San Caillou, he lay motionless on the bed, trembling and sobbing. He mocked himself, a weak, pitiful boy. He had to swallow back the burning, bitter tears of a loser and cry like a 5-year-old child. Evening at the boxing gym. Kay leaned against the glass frame. 2 students looked at him and gossiped. Look, he's been standing there for days. I thought he'd take Ryu and leave. They excitedly discussed. While he's here, should we ask him to train us? When will we ever get another opportunity like this? Yeah, that's right. Kay furrowed his brows. Excuse me, coach, the 2 students eagerly tried to impress him. We're preparing to go pro. Could you give us some advice? He coldly dismissed them. I'm not interested in the weak. Go away. His heartless words were heartbreaking. The 2 boys hugged each other and left crying. Kay remained steadfast, his eyes fixed on a point. At that moment, he longed for him. He wanted that boy. It was the first time in his life he craved someone so intensely. I'll lose my patience. If he doesn't show up by the end of the month, I'll have to kidnap him. Suddenly, the assistant's complaint distracted him. What, Ryu still hasn't come for practice? Fate, I thought he would finally make an effort for something. Kay gritted his teeth, annoyed. Later, the creaking of the training room door sounded. The assistant turned around and immediately scolded, Damn it, Ryu, do you know what time it is? It wasn't Ryu but a thin, small, slow-moving boy standing at the door. The 3 people in the training room stood frozen as they saw the boy. The assistant gaped in surprise. Coach K's lips were tightly pressed together, trembling. He pretended to ask, So you agree? Yu turned his head to avoid the coach's gaze. He mumbled, Probably. He purposely spoke loudly to emphasize, I train professional boxers, you understand? Yu spoke in a deep voice. I have one condition. His hand moved towards his side. Kay noticed it. He guessed, could it be? Yu contemplated for a moment before confiding, I need money to pay for hospital bills. If you can pay it for me, I'll try. The coach didn't take his eyes off the boy's dilapidated appearance. So that's it. Without hesitation, he smiled and accepted the condition. Okay, so this Ryu kid, is he a formidable opponent? Yu glanced back at Kay. He nonchalantly replied, No, not at all. Kay burst out laughing, his laughter so hearty that his assistant was startled out of his awkward mood. He said loudly, So you just need the money to pay for the hospital fees? Suddenly, he glared and shouted, Cheapskate! Kid, if you want, I'll buy the whole hospital. The coach leaned close to him, looking directly at the boy. Lead the way. Yu instinctively leaned back to keep some distance. Receiving the signal, Yu turned and walked away. Kay turned his head back and said to his assistant, Take care. Then at the hospital. Back-san Ryu was obediently resting in the hospital bed. Kay was excited to see the extent of his injuries. He really got beaten to a pulp. This old man's thoughts and judgments were not wrong, and there was a little hesitation. But this kid has always thought he was invincible. I wonder if he can recover from this humiliation. The coach stood there silently for a long time. It didn't really concern him anyway. In another room, Injae was still unconscious, his face covered in bandages, a heartbreaking sight. Yu's face was heavy with sorrow, as if he wanted to cry for his friend. He recalled the moment when Injae lay on the ground in pain, yet his eyes and words afterward were so strong, they were deeply etched into Yu's heart. Yu swallowed, remembering those profound words. He made up his mind to leave. Kay was already standing at the door, asking again if he was ready. I will definitely make them pay for all the pain Injae has endured, Yu replied briefly. All right. 2 figures walked along the dimly lit street, arriving at a house. Yu opened the door and invited Kay inside. He asked a rhetorical question, So, This is your place? The trainer observed every corner and concluded, the house is bare. It was true, just a small room. A thin mattress lay in the right corner, with a black blanket haphazardly thrown on top. Clothes were scattered everywhere. A small cabinet was in the inner corner, the only window tiny and barely noticeable. The only thing mitigating the emptiness of the room was a small, mischievous black cat. He asked about the boy's situation. Do you have parents? The boy replied coldly, no. Kay nodded and hummed, I see. The trainer said, I'll go prepare the documents, and come back in a week. Suddenly, Kay realized he had missed the most important thing. Oh, I forgot to ask your name. Yu's face darkened as he heard the question. What's your name, kid? A few fragments of memory flitted through his mind, his thin, frail body with limp hair, his pale, bloodless face, and the child's naive question, Mother, what's my name? But the little boy received no answer. The lips were dry and cracked, and the person's eyes were covered by long hair. They clenched their jaw as if wanting to vent their hatred towards life. Then they slumped, hanging lifelessly in the air. One day, a stranger came. They called out a name, but he couldn't recall it clearly. Your parents are you and you, right? Only the syllable you lingered in his memory. His eyes suddenly filled with despair. The little cat ran over and rubbed against his legs. Returning to the present, he replied, You can just call me you. As if sensing something, he silently looked at him for a moment. He brushed aside the silence. All right, starting today will be a brand new beginning for you. Kay affirmed confidently, I will guide you to a completely different world. Their backs faced each other, one old, one young, one strong, one small, a stark contrast representing Yu's future. Each person's life has countless different paths, and each choice is predetermined by fate. Some people are destined to have a great life from birth. It was morning at the hospital. The familiar bloodshot eyes had softened somewhat. San Kaiyu stared blankly out the window, the 4 poles still beside him. Meanwhile, others are rejected by fate. As if predetermined, prey and predator meet in the same predicament. In this absurd, brutal world, amidst the endless whirlwind of destiny, Injei stared at him with wide eyes. San Kaiyu stared back at him. A moment later, he turned away, his face contorted with shame. Injei, on the other hand, was far more resolute. Where there is purpose and courage, only the strong can stand tall and walk forward in the face of destiny. He confidently walked past as if they were strangers. Kay, in his formal suit, asked, Ready? The little cat in the cage meows mischievously. Yu, dressed in a tight black outfit, holds the cage with one hand and a small bag on the other shoulder. Sure, he says. The man observes him thoughtfully. His long hair covering his eyes seems to be the issue. Wait, the man says, this won't do. The trainer sprays a bit of hairspray onto his hand. He styles the long black fringe backward. Yu's entire face came into view, pale skin, eyes with heavy dark circles. Kay nodded, that's how it should be. The sound of the airplane roared through the vast space. The airport scene, viewed from afar, was quite new, with electronic boards constantly displaying announcements. The little cat yawned repeatedly from exhaustion after the long flight. As soon as they got off the plane, Kay saw their welcoming party. Oh, there they are. CA Men was already waiting there. Welcome back, coach. Kay gave the luggage to a nearby worker, casually asking, Everything alright, right? However, CA Men seemed to be paying attention to someone behind him. The worker offered, Let me help you with your luggage. Yu flatly declined, No need, thank you. She wondered if this was the person. She took the initiative to shake his hand, saying, Nice to meet you. I'm the gym manager, CA Men. Then, she turned and guided the 2 guests, saying, Please follow me. There's a car waiting for you. Kay nodded, okay. They walked through the streets, one lamppost after another. Soon, they arrived at their destination. Yu stared intently at his new home. This house was different from the one he had lived in for years. It was bigger, had a sturdy roof, and from the outside, you could see it was divided into different rooms, with many windows, also large. The main door was made of wood and looked quite sturdy. The surroundings were decorated with a lush green fence. CA Men introduced, You'll be living here from now on. The 3 of them entered the house. CA Men carefully said, You said you didn't like living in a big house, so I intentionally chose this one for you. She welcomed you warmly. If you need anything else, please let me know. Don't be shy, Yu, who kept a cold expression on his face. Kay turned and said, You don't have much luggage to unpack, so let's go to the gym now. The three of them moved to the boxing club, which was even more magnificent than the house they had just left. It was painted entirely in pure white, a spacious reception hallway with towering white flagpoles evenly spaced on both sides of the entrance. This is our gym, Lion's Boxing Club. It's not far from where you live, so it will be very convenient for you to train every day. There were a lot of people training inside. When they saw him, they stopped training. Wow, look at that. CA Men and the two others walked around the spacious training room, giving a presentation. Our gym is considered the sanctuary of boxers because it has won many tournaments. We have trained 5 world champions who have proudly etched their names into history. We also have a well-established training methodology based on scientific research, along with world-leading modern equipment. Throughout the entire journey, she talked endlessly about the wonderful things here. Meanwhile, hundreds of eyes were focused on the young man walking in the middle. He's pretty small. Is he the one the coach personally selected? There were some eyes in the distance, looking at you with a slight displeasure. It was Jonathan. CA Men explained that most people here were professional boxers, but very few received direct coaching from the coach. She advised him, You should be proud to have been personally selected by him. He's so short with words, he just mumbled, Yeah, probably. CA Men pouted, These damn geniuses are so annoying. Kay gestured towards the 2 men, introducing them. This is Arnold, our top physical trainer, and he ignored Kay and looked away. You'll need some time to adjust, so I'll give you a tour first. Noticing Yu's lack of focus, he stopped and observed. He put his hands on his hips and looked up at the large pictures proudly displayed. These are the world champions I trained. His voice turned nostalgic. Each of them was so easy to train. I had a wonderful time. Their names deserve to be etched in boxing history. Kay pointed to the picture of a muscular man with dark skin, arms crossed with a confident smile. The last one on the right is the heavyweight champion, Aaron Tide. He's still in the ring, although he's with a different gym now. He's still my greatest masterpiece. He smirked. I want to show you what a real fight looks like. He ordered Carmen, Get me 2 seats for tomorrow's heavyweight title fight. She quickly responded, Yes, coach. He watched you stand there silently, looking at the pictures. Deep down, he wanted to convey to the young man, use this opportunity to realize that, besides you, there is another monster in this world. The 3 of them stood there for a long time. The next morning at the club, the roar of the crowd filled the air. Kay and Yu stood in a separate hallway. He carefully observes this rare scene. A space filled with cheers. People are as numerous as ants. Among the crowd is the stage where a very fierce match is taking place. The white-haired brother shows a terrified expression, trying to lean back to keep his distance, his hands covering his face defensively. On the other side is his fear, a muscular man with brown skin and wild white eyes with a fist aimed at him. The punch knocks away his defensive arm, terrifying him. This time, the opponent changes direction with a very painful left hook. The commentator describes it with great effort. The champion is attacking relentlessly. Next is a straight punch to the face, but the white-haired man managed to block it. Will the challenger be able to hold on? The champion immediately delivers a direct hit, pushing back his defense. The force of the blow was too great. He couldn't hold on any longer. He fell backwards and coughed up blood. The referee blew his whistle and shouted, the match was over. Aaron, unscathed, leaned against the stands, raising his hand in victory to the cheers of the crowd. His unfortunate opponent lay collapsed on the mat. The medical staff had to carry a stretcher out to help him. The commentator updated the situation. Once again, the reigning champion had sent his challenger back on a stretcher. He had successfully defended his title with overwhelming strength. The audience was even more excited. Their cheers shook the entire stadium. Who could possibly take his title away from him? A satisfied smile spread across the coach's face. He praised Aaron, saying he had the strength of a destroyer. He shouted, as if trying to inject energy into you, listen to these sounds. The sound of the crowd cheering. I'll give you a prophecy. He declared your destiny with certainty. Soon, this crowd will be your sole audience. All the wealth and fame you never imagined will soon be yours. Holding high the prestigious golden belt, I will make you the king of boxing." The coach looked steadfastly at Aaron, the reigning champion, who was casually answering questions. His eyes turned into hatred. That moment would definitely come. He would avenge this hatred. Then he gave a dangerous smile. In his mind, he pictured you, thinking, "I've been waiting for this day for a long time." The space around you was dark and misty. Then suddenly a saying from the Bible, page 4 verse 1, International Version, appeared in his mind. I looked again and saw all the oppression that was taking place on earth. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. I saw that the oppressors had power, but there was no one to comfort them. Then, unexpectedly, a pair of blood-red eyes appeared. Along with them, Yu's gloomy face emerged, and he recalled another verse from the Bible, chapter 4, verses 2 and 3 of the International Version, "For it is better to be dead than to be alive. But the happiest of all are those who have never been born, for they have never had to witness the corruption of this world." Suddenly, a starry sky appeared in Yu's mind, along with the blurry figure of someone he couldn't make out, who said, "When you reach the summit, then we'll fight, little one." After those words, he slowly woke up. He was alone in the empty attic. A moment later Yu sat up. His eyes were vacant, like those of a soulless person. But his hand reached out to stroke the black cat sleeping beside him. The next morning at the Lion Boxing Club. Inside the office, Kay, with a stern face, stared straight ahead. Josh was not afraid and looked directly into Kay's eyes. After a long silence, Kay asked, "If you win, I will have to train you, right?" Josh quickly answered, "Yes, coach, give me a chance to prove myself." His fearless answer made Kay curious, and he asked, "What if you win?" Suddenly raising his voice, he sarcastically taunted Josh, making the boy tense and angry. "You're lucky if you can land a single punch on him. If you're good enough to scratch that kid, I promise I'll make you a world champion." The image of Josh standing on a high stone platform, looking at another high platform in front of him, seemed to symbolize his determination. Later, just before the match, Josh was carefully wrapping his hands. The group of people in the gym, hearing about his fight, immediately started gossiping. "Hey, have you heard? Josh is fighting a newcomer." "Damn, really?" They all looked towards him sitting in a corner, then continued their chatter. "Aren't the people chosen by the coach all geniuses? I wonder how this guy will be. But Josh has improved a lot. This fight won't be easy." All those words reached Josh's ears, making him furious. He remembered the time in Kay's office when he shouted in question, "Are you mocking me?" Kay's silence was his reply. At that time, Josh had yelled at Kay's face, "This year I won the junior tournament, and even the professional boxers in this gym can't beat me. How much better do you want me to be?" Kay remained calm and replied, "Kid, I've said it over and over again," he coolly asserted. "There are countless people with your potential." His words made Josh a little annoyed, which was evident in his angry eyes. Kay continued, "Even on this short trip, I've encountered two people who are much stronger than you." Then he asked a question that shocked Josh, clearly pushing his limits. "What's the fun in training someone like that?" As soon as he finished, Josh's lips tightened in frustration, and he soon asked, "Do I just need to land one hit?" He emphasized his question to Kay, who said, "Just make him scratch." Finally, he turned away and concluded, "I'll crush him and prove you wrong." His confident and determined declaration intrigued Kay, who said, "Oh, really? Let's see then." Returning to the present, Josh was deep in thought. He suddenly turned his head, and saw Kay teaching you how to wrap his hand. Right, wrap it like that. This sight left Josh a little bewildered. The kid didn't even know how to wrap his hand. He then switched to anger, clenching his teeth. Under the ring, the fighters urged each other on, cheering him on. "Hurry up, the fight's about to start. Josh, show him what you're made of." However, a few fighters were a bit uneasy, asking each other, "But is it okay? Look at that kid's physique." They all looked at Yu's skinny frame in the corner of the ring, whispering amongst themselves, "You can tell he's never trained before." The coach approved him though. Suddenly, a man from the crowd spoke up, "Never underestimate the coach's eye for talent." Something in his eyes reminded him of the first time he brought Aaron here. A memory flashed before him. A young man sitting on the boxing ring with blood on his face, accompanied by the words, "Now that guy is the world champion." His eyes became more serious than ever, his mind silently calling, "Josh." He stared intently at Josh on the ring, wondering, what will you do when you have to face an immeasurable power? Something in his eyes reminded him of the first time he brought Aaron here. You kept a cold face and replied, "Not really," but in his heart he wondered, why are they all here? His answer pleased Kay, who continued, "Good, then this is your first boxing lesson first." His expression turned playful as he announced, "From this moment until you retire from boxing, don't let yourself be hit." You remained cold, replying, "All right, I guess." Feeling like he had nothing more to say, Kay climbed down as he spoke, "All right, that's enough for the first round." On the ring, only Josh, you, and the referee remained. Immediately, Kay ordered, "Ring the bell." A cunning smile appeared on his face, accompanied by the thought, "All right, let's see what you've got." As soon as the bell rang with a ting, the referee announced, "Begin." The moment those two words were out, a figure quickly darted forward. Fueled by determination and anger, Josh immediately charged towards you, aiming to land a punch on him. Just as his fist was about to connect with Yu's face, Yu effortlessly tilted his head to dodge it. But Josh was no slouch, he quickly unleashed another strike. Despite this, Yu managed to dodge it again. Josh continued to throw a powerful punch, and Yu dodged it effortlessly, dodging every blow with lightning speed. Josh was a whirlwind of punches. Yu again effortlessly ducked his head to avoid the blow. Everyone below gasped at each blow. Josh was aggressive right from the start, so fast, his attack speed was incredible. Unlike everyone else, Kay smiled mockingly and said to himself, "Look at him, why the rush?" Excitement was evident on his face, along with a burning desire in his heart. He wanted to throw the kid into the ring immediately. Below the ring, some fighters noticed Yu's agile dodging, but he hadn't landed a hit yet. In a corner of the training room, Carmen had been watching the fight from the beginning. Her eyes widened in amazement. She smiled with amusement, silently saying to herself, "So, this time, it's speed over power." The man standing with the other fighters below watched Yu's every move on the arena, guessing that the kid was dodging them effortlessly without breaking a sweat, almost without even moving. The man standing with the other fighters below watched Yu's every move on the arena, guessing that the kid was dodging them effortlessly without breaking a sweat, almost without even moving. Another punch was thrown, and as before, Yu easily ducked to the side. The punch came closer, and he had already moved to the side. Of course, the punch went past his face. Outside the training room, it was quiet. But inside the training room, the tension was higher than ever as everyone watched Yu's incredible performance. It was unbelievable. While Josh on the arena was panting hard from exhaustion. Disbelief was evident on his face. No, it couldn't be. While Josh was stunned and unable to believe it, Yu acted as if nothing had happened. Josh stared at Yu with an intense dissatisfaction, thinking, "I can't even touch him." His eyes widened in shock. He recalled Kay's statement, "If you're good enough to scratch that kid, I promise to make you a world champion." Only now did Josh realize that his coach wasn't just trying to irritate him. His heart pounded with anticipation, questioning himself, was he serious? He furrowed his brows in worry. Suddenly, an insurmountable wall appeared before him. A wall so strong that it can't be broken. Josh tried to calm himself down. "Damn it, calm down, just calm down." He encouraged himself, "You can do this. I moved too obviously. I'll throw some feints and speed up to confuse him." Thinking his doing, he quickly dashed in front of you and feigned a strike. Then he immediately switched his other hand to punch him straight, but the result was that you easily dodged. Josh continued to attack him with a jab. Suddenly he bounced backwards towards him. A powerful punch was about to be swung straight into Yu's face, and to land this blow, Josh's feet had to be planted firmly. Contrary to the plan Josh had devised earlier, that Yu would be hit by his surprise attack, the result he received was another instant dodge from Yu, and surprise bloomed on his face once again. As soon as he launched another blow, it was the same. Yu still dodged. In his heart he was more panicked than ever. How is that possible? An old memory resurfaced in his mind, a deserted training room with only him practicing and the janitor reminding him, "Josh, that closing time was near." He cheerfully turned around and replied, "Yeah, I'm almost done." At that time, His youthful heart was full of conviction. "I believe no one trains harder than me," followed by the sound of his fists slamming against the punching bag. Every punch Josh threw was powerful, driven by his unwavering effort. "I've poured my heart and soul into this for years." He continued training relentlessly on the empty training floor. During his training, he paused for a moment and looked up at something. He was looking at a large poster of Aaron wearing his champion belt, plastered on the training room wall. Returning to the present, an overwhelming sense of frustration erupted within Josh. What is the point? Kay, standing below the ring, was intently watching the fight and seemed to understand Josh's feelings at the moment. "Yes, it's unfair, isn't it?" On the surface, he appeared never to have acknowledged Josh's achievements, but deep down, he thought differently. "You are a good boxer. I admit that." Kay acknowledged everything Josh had accomplished: his footwork, punching power, precision, stamina, and awareness. All of those skills were excellent, the result of his passion, dedication to boxing, and countless hours of hard training. However, there was one thing he could confidently say about him: in the end, you can only go so far. He deliberately orchestrated this fight for Josh to realize something. No matter how much he tried to deny it, he had to realize by now that someone as good as him, just an average player, could never stand a chance against an opponent with natural talent. Despite that, he still believed Josh could succeed, but don't be too disappointed. By defeating many opponents, you have already come this far. The bell signaling the end of the round rang out, a loud clang. The referee quickly separated Josh and you. End of round 1. The two returned to their respective corners. Josh, gasping for breath from exhaustion, returned to his corner. Kay, now standing in the ring, watched his back with a thought in his mind: it's time to end this fight. He then excitedly turned to you and said, "Now we'll move on to the second lesson." He feigned a punch to Yu's jaw, teaching him, a hit to the jaw will instantly knock someone out. He taught and questioned with a playful tone: "So, in boxing, you just need to be good at two things, dodging and punching. Simple, right?" Yu, bored, replied, "Yeah, I guess so." In his mind, Kay repeated his earlier statement: dodge and punch. Boxing is that simple. He reasoned that all boxers sweat, cry, and train day and night to achieve this singular goal. However, he also acknowledged, but those born with talent already possess fighting abilities and can create their own style. This led Kay to conclude, that's why it's much more effective to set a goal for them than to teach them some random punches. His eyes grew darker as he observed you. Aside from his natural talent, this kid's abilities are truly immeasurable. "I've never seen anything like it," Kay declared and asserted with conviction about you. His presence was the perfect embodiment of boxing. On the other side of the ring, Josh still stared ahead with his eyes. He intently watched Kay teaching you how to punch. His resentment was evident, making him clench his teeth and curse under his breath, "Damn." After a brief rest, the referee walked into the ring and announced, "Round 2. Standing on either side of him were Josh and you, ready for battle. Deep down, Josh had to accept it. Alright, I'll admit it. He was forced to acknowledge Yu's extraordinary abilities. This guy has incredible reflexes. It's like I'm fighting a ghost. I've never, ever encountered anyone this skilled in my life. After a while, he thought, but there's something that no matter how talented you are, you can't make up for it. Josh was confident that he was better than you, and that was his resilience. And to achieve it, to gain resilience, you need to train hard. Josh glanced at you and guessed, you can tell he's tired from the previous round. He seriously changed his fighting strategy for the next round. I wasted my energy in the first round because I was too excited, but in the second round, I'll fight slower and pay more attention to my stamina while continuing to put pressure on him. The scene shifts to Kay watching the match intently. On the ring, Josh confidently thought, let's see if he can keep dodging after he's exhausted. At this point, he had no choice but to try it out. As soon as the referee shouted, "Begin," a sudden thud sound echoed, leaving Josh bewildered. His eyes began to close. He fell heavily onto the fighting platform. Moments later, through his blurry vision, he heard the referee calling out, "Josh, Josh." When he regained consciousness, he found himself seated in the corner of the platform. The referee said, "Good, you're awake?" Josh's eyes darted towards the fighting platform below, where he spotted Kay. Josh, still gasping for breath, stumbled back to the corner. Kay was already back on the platform, watching his back with a thought in his mind: it's time to end this fight. Even so, Josh's disappointment was clear on his face. Oh, I see. His mind replayed Yu's lightning-fast strike. It filled him with self-doubt, and forced him to admit that the boy was on a completely different level. Josh remembered the moment he saw Aaron with the championship belt and Kay's words, "You've reached your limit. What's the fun in training someone like that?" Disappointment and helplessness filled him. His silence was profound. Suddenly someone asked, "Want to spar again?" Josh looked up and saw Yu standing in front of him, the one who had asked the question. He silently cursed the guy, calling him a dog, then he angrily snapped, "Fighting you will only make things worse. I know how good you are. Get out of my sight." Faced with Josh's anger, Yu just stayed silent. The image of Njai, with his bloody face full of rage, flashed in his mind. Then he closed his eyes and said nothing. He finally said to Josh, "It's up to you." Hearing his answer, Josh could only purse his lips. Then, abruptly, he asked Yu, "Let me ask you something." He asked directly, "The coach said he met someone else who was stronger than me when he came to see you. Do you know who that person is?" Yu coldly replied, "I know." Josh pursed his lips and fell silent, seemingly deep in thought. Then he asked, "That person, is he really stronger than me?" Yu glanced at him but didn't say anything. His gaze was intensely scrutinizing. For in his mind's eye, he saw Njai, his face bruised, standing in a fighting stance toward him. After a moment of silence, Yu said, "Maybe." These two words from him only amplified the disappointment in Josh's heart. He hung his head and replied, "Okay." He was alone on the stage, utterly helpless. In a high-rise building, the journalist watched the news on his phone, his expression full of satisfaction. Everyone was still in shock, and the last fighter trained by Kay was about to make his debut. He predicted that this year's lightweight title fight would be interesting. Suddenly, a colleague approached him, offering him coffee and asking, "Did you find any good leads?" He took the coffee and replied, "Oh, thanks." He then asked his colleague, "Did you hear that Kay's new fighter is making his debut soon?" The colleague excitedly replied, "Yes, everyone's talking about it. Everyone wants an exclusive story on that fight." The journalist sipped his coffee and added, "Yeah, that old man protects his students fiercely. Getting information from him isn't easy." However, the journalist calmly said, "But I don't understand what that old man is thinking. Still, I managed to find a small clue."